Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Gremlins 2, the new batch brought to us by Sunsoft. While the Gremlins 2 game for the NES is fondly remembered and consistently brought up in retro countdowns and retro videos, Gremlins 2 on the Game Boy is not mentioned nearly as much, if ever. Gremlins 2 on the Game Boy, while still a very difficult game, is a more traditional side-scroll platformer as opposed to the top-down perspective in Gremlins 2 on the NES. Gremlins 2 features 4 different levels with 4 boss encounters against the mutated Gremlins, which actually ends up making it a rather fun but still very difficult experience with some good music to go along with it. Maybe not as memorable as the NES soundtrack, but I still like and enjoy a lot of the tunes that are presented in Gremlins 2 on Game Boy. So, here we go with Gremlins 2. Once you start off the game, you'll have a little intro with Gizmo kind of walking on the screen and seeing the footprints of the newly mutated Gremlins, and then once you press start, you'll get your opening cutscene before diving into level number 1. When we gain control of Gizmo in the first stage, you'll notice that you'll be able to jump, but unable to attack until you pick up the pencil upgrade that is located just a few steps into the level. You must pick this up in every level if Gizmo is going to be able to attack his foes. Though, if you're good enough, you can actually manipulate around the levels and not even need it to end up hurting enemies, as you can pick up some other stuff, such as the boomboxes with music notes that can fire out in order to hit an enemy, and the giant box like this, which can run through a large amount of enemies until eventually getting hit and you'll end up losing it. They have some good representation of the various Gremlins throughout the course of the game, along with a few other enemies such as bats and spiders to deal with. Most of the interesting mutations of the Gremlins are in the game, whether they be bosses or just a normal enemy throughout the course of stages. You'll have 4 health in order to battle through the levels, with the hearts represented at the top of the screen. The first boss is against the mutated fruit Gremlin, who throws out giant tomatoes. Run up close to him, deliver a hit, and then quickly back away, trying to get underneath the giant tomatoes as they bounce. You can lay in multiple hits if you time it exactly correctly, and even stand in a nice safe spot if you stand at just the right point right in front of him where you'll be able to still hit him, but you won't end up taking damage. Once he goes off screen though, the battle is over and you move on to the next stage. Between there though is a bonus level where you can mash the A button in order to attack this speed bag. If you're able to get 100 hits onto the speed bag, you will earn yourself an extra life. Overall, level number 1 was pretty easy, but once you get to level 2 and beyond, that's when the game really starts to pick up in its difficulty, making the 3rd and 4th stages really hard to actually be able to get through. One of the things that makes it difficult is the abundance of very small gaps that you'll have to platform your way through and up through, and using the various springs throughout the stages in order to do that. Up here to the left is where you'll find the pencil here, so be sure to grab that if you're going to want to actually be able to attack a lot of the enemies. And then there's a boombox right nearby that you can pick up to launch at whatever enemy you feel like launching it at. There's a lot of conveyor belts here that you'll have to time right so you can make it through once going through this opening here. bounce your way using the springs. I recommend getting used to the timing with the springs, because starting off in level 3, you'll really have to be on your game with the springs, so it's best to practice in an earlier stage so you have a feel for exactly how they work, as it is a bit clunky for sure. The skateboarding gremlins take 3 hits in order to disperse them. They can also actually fall into the opening pits and die that way. The good thing is, once you hit an enemy when they're flashing, if you quickly go through them, you can actually avoid taking any damage and just bypass them. At the end of the stage, it's time for the gargoyle boss. For this boss, you have to wait for him to dive down and attack, and then you'll be able to hit him using your pencil. The good thing is about the game, if you don't have a weapon going into the boss encounters, they will automatically give you the pencil. So for some reason you didn't pick it up, you can get through anyway. The problem with this boss is avoiding the actual little mini bats. Trying to get them to kind of go around and actually outrun them can be difficult. You want to stay on the far left or right side of the screen, and once they spawn and start coming down, run to the opposite side of the screen so you can hopefully get them to stop moving, and then you'll have to jump around them in order to try to avoid getting a hit from them. Staying still in the middle of the screen or at any point, you're going to end up probably taking a hit from a bat. Thankfully, they only do half a heart of damage, but still, if you're low on health, you're going to want to, of course, try to avoid this. Once you deliver the final hit to him, he'll turn to a solid piece of stone falling down, and then you'll be able to move on to level number 3. This is where the difficulty of the game really starts to pick up. You'll have to spring your way up on some of these springs in order to get to the higher platforms. You can grab this box here, and then use that to go through the opening to the right. You have this big guy up here, which is just so goofy looking as he jumps up, but you can just kind of run past him without actually having to fight him. Use the box to your advantage to jump on some of the lesser enemies, and then you'll have to spring up here through this opening and be able to just hug the wall enough that you'll be able to land. If you mess it up, you may accidentally fall into the pit to the side, or just end up falling back down to the spring if you're lucky. Now here is another really difficult spot. You have to ride this moving block as it keeps maneuvering really quickly around. It moves so fast that I'm unable to really keep up with it. Timing your jump so that you'll be able to get past. You have to wait for it to go one more loop around the bottom portion so that you'll be able to get to the platform on the right side. Kind of tricks you into thinking, am I supposed to jump now at that first initial ending? But no, you actually have to wait for it to go one more loop around, and then you'll be able to actually make it across. Unfortunately, I missed the pencil, which is located near the beginning of the level, so I don't have a weapon against these guys, so it makes the level definitely tougher to try to go through, but it's not impossible. There are a few health pickups and hearts around that you can grab so that you'll at least have some health throughout the course of the stage. At the end of the level, though, you'll be battling the electric gremlin. What you have to do is wait for him to hit the ground, and he'll become solid again, or at least solid enough that you'll be able to deliver a hit. He'll then bounce all around the room, and you kind of just have to pay attention to the angles and try to move left or right to try to avoid it. He starts off always by immediately bouncing left and right on the side walls, so you can easily jump over that. The problem is, after a few seconds, not after he hits a wall, but just randomly at a certain time interval, he'll spring upwards into the diagonal pattern, and then you'll have to be able to be paying attention enough to try to get out of the way of that. It's a pretty tough fight, but he doesn't take too many hits in order to defeat him. Once he goes down, you'll move on to the 4th and final level, but you have another bonus stage in between if you want to. Usually, though, in the end, my finger's already probably bothering me from the last one of these, as I had to mash the button quickly, so as long as I have at least 1 or 2 lives, I usually don't worry about it too much. The final level, level 4, is of course the hardest in the game, and one of the reasons is right here. You have to spring up and time it just right so that you'll be able to squeeze through this tiny little opening. And then right afterwards, you'll grab the pencil and have to do another series of really tough spring jumps, using it in order to actually move up and continue without accidentally landing in the spikes. As you won't be able to jump out of the spikes and continue, you'll just have to go back to the spring and try again. They do thankfully give you a little bit of health right afterwards, but one of the toughest segments, if not the absolute hardest, that this game can offer. Watch out for the conveyor belts and springs. You'll want to bounce yourself up here, taking out this gremlin guy before you end up continuing over. Once he's done, you're actually going to go to the left, not go to the right, if you want to grab a little bit of extra health. If you don't need this health, go to the right past where that firing, spewing gremlin was. Once you drop down here, watch out for more of the gremlins. Try to take them out as much as possible using your pencil here. You're going to need every bit of your health. You need full health in order to defeat the boss of this stage. At least, I've never been able to defeat him without having full health going into it. Watch out for the boulders that get spawned from this guy hammering at this block. There's thankfully another bit of health if you do need it down here, and the fireballs that shoot out from the one gremlin don't fire too far. They eventually will dissipate. From here, fire out your boombox, picking up another heart, and then drop on down here at the right time. Wait for him to throw his projectile out, drop down, move to the right, and then continue on. In this segment, you have to platform your way through while unable to actually see Gizmo. This is, of course, extremely challenging while we're trying to do our best to keep our health fully up. I usually get hit once or twice by the spikes just because of the timing of everything as you're making it through. This area is not just tough, but more annoying than even its difficulty ends up being. Now for this next segment, be sure to hug the right when you're falling down, that way you can at least bypass one of the spring jumps. You'll then have to use the next spring to get up and then drop down another part here. Once again, hold right once you're actually able to get past the spikes. This way you can grab a huge heart to replenish your health. Take out these two jumping gremlins and then continue along your way over to the right side. You'll have to use a spring, of course, to jump up and then do some really nicely timed jumps to get past this, but it's sometimes really difficult to do so. The plus is there's another giant heart for you to gather by using the spring at the end here in order to pick that up, but you're going to want to jump over to the left platform where the conveyor belt is in order to continue your way through the stage. The final boss itself is a giant spider. You have to jump into a mini web, and that will carry you upwards where you can deliver hits. A hit from the little spiders is a full thing of health though, and unfortunately there's really no way to avoid the spiders once you're in the little web. Even on the ground they're really hard. So just focus on him and deliver timed hits. If you time it right, even if you get hit by a spider at the same time you deliver a hit to him, it will count and the boss will be defeated, and you can sit back and enjoy the ending to Gremlins 2. So there you have it, Gremlins 2 for the Nintendo Game Boy. While not as memorable or as good as the NES version, I still think it's a fun platformer. One of the reasons why it's harder for me to recommend this one than the NES one is because I feel this one's a bit more unfair in its difficulty, especially some of those spring jumps during the final stage. While the NES game is very difficult, I feel like it's not completely unfair at times, like I do feel some of it is during the course of this game. However, I still enjoy the music, and I love Gremlins being one of my favorite film franchises, so for that reason, I can say, hey, check it out if you're able to get a copy. But anyway, guys, that will wrap up this episode of Play It Through. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a thumbs up or commenting down below. It helps more people get to see the video by recommending it to them in their recommended video list. If you enjoyed this Play It Through, be sure to check out the one I did for Gremlins 2 on the NES back in 2011. Not the best quality of commentary, of course, but still a fun run to watch nonetheless. And also be sure to check out my countdown for the top 5 worst Resident Evil games of all time that I did last week. I also need to thank all the members of my Patreon. Without your guys' continued support, I would not be able to keep doing what I'm doing, so thank you all so much. If you'd like to help out as well, there's a little Patreon button you can click on the screen right now, and it'll take you to all the information. But anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoy.